Besides, he wanted to hurt a lot of people in America. He despised Americans. The wolf had given him an opportunity to do some real damage here. Zamochit, the breaking of bones, mass murder. Lately, Schaefer had been wearing his hair cut short, and he'd also dyed it black. He couldn't exactly disguise the fact that he was 6'2", but he had done something better. Actually, he'd gotten this idea from an old associate. During daylight, at least, he traveled around Washington in the wheelchair, a state-of-the-art model he could easily throw in the back of the Saab station wagon he was driving. If he was noticed occasionally, and he was, it was for all the wrong reasons. At 6:20 that morning, Schaefer met with a contact inside Union Station. They both got on cue, the contact standing behind Schaefer at a Starbucks. They struck up what appeared to be a casual conversation. "They're on the move," said the contact, who worked as an assistant to a higher-up in the FBI. "Nobody listened to the warnings not to investigate. They've already moved surveillance into the targeted cities. They're looking for you here, of course. Agent Cross is assigned to you." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Schaefer said, and smiled crookedly as he always did. He wasn't surprised about the surveillance. The wolf had predicted it, so had he. He stayed in line and bought a latte. Then he pressed a button and the wheelchair rolled to a row of payphones near the railway station's ticket booths. He sipped his hot drink as he placed a local call. "I have some scut work for you. Pays very well," he said to the woman who answered. $50,000 for just an hour or so of your time."
"Well then, I'm your scut,"
said the woman, who happened to be one of the world's very best snipers.
Chapter 28.
The meeting with the subcontractor took place just before noon in the food court at the Tyson's Corner Mall. Colonel Schaefer met Captain Nicole Williams at a small table directly across from a Burger King. They had burgers and sodas laid out in front of them, but neither ate what Schaefer referred to as god-awful Yankee artery cloggers. "Nice wheels," Captain Williams said with a smirk when she saw him arrive in the wheelchair. "You have no shame, do you?" "Whatever works, Nicky," he returned her smile. "You know me well enough by now. Whatever the job takes, I get it done." "Yeah, I know you, Colonel. Anyway, thanks for thinking of me for this." "Wait until you hear about the job before you thank me," he said. "That's why I'm here, to listen." Actually, Schaefer was already a little concerned. He was surprised that Nikki Williams had let herself go so much since the last time they'd worked together. He doubted that she was 5'6", but she must have weighed close to 200 pounds now. Still, Nikki Williams exuded the confidence of the highly skilled professional Schaefer knew she had always been. They'd worked together for 6 months in Angola, and Captain Williams was very good at her specialty. She'd always delivered what was asked of her before. He told Nikki Williams only her part of the job and repeated the fee, which was $50,000 for less than an hour's work. The thing he liked best about Nikki was that she never complained about the difficulty of any job, or even its risks. "What's the next step for me? When do we go?" were her only 2 questions after he had detailed the basics, though not the actual target. "Tomorrow at 1, you'll be at the Manassas Regional Airport in Virginia. An MD-530 helicopter will set down there at 5 past the hour. We'll have an HK PSG-1 on board for you." Williams frowned and shook her head. If you don't mind, I'll bring my own. I prefer the Winchester M70 with 300 Win Magnum hollow point boat tails. I field tested them, know they're best for this kind of job. You said that glass has to be penetrated, right?" "Yes, that's right, Captain. You have to shoot into an office building." Schaefer didn't object to the change in weapons. He had worked with plenty of snipers and knew they were always idiosyncratic, had their own peculiar way of doing things. He'd expected modifications from her and was surprised there weren't more, actually. "So, who's going to die tomorrow?" Nicky Williams finally asked. "I need to know that, of course." Schaefer told Captain Williams the target, and to her credit, she never raised an eyebrow. Her only reaction was, "My price just went up. It just doubled." Schaefer nodded slowly. "Agreed. That will be just fine, Captain." Then Nicky Williams smiled. "Did I settle too low?" Schaefer nodded again. "Yes, you did. But I'm going to give you 150 anyway. Just don't miss him."
Chapter 29. We might have gotten a decent break in the case. Finally, something, and it had started with a tip from me. The wheelchair. We had a lead. At 10 in the morning, I raced across Washington to the Farragut apartment building on Cathedral Avenue. 3 years before, a partner of mine named Patsy Hampton had been murdered in the underground garage of the Farragut. Jeffrey Schaefer had killed her. The Farragut was where his old therapist lived. We'd had Dr. Elizabeth Cassidy under surveillance for the past 36 hours, and it seemed to have paid off. The Weasel had shown up. He parked in the underground garage near where Patsy had been brutally killed. Then he went upstairs to the penthouse apartment, 10D, where Dr. Cassidy still lived. He'd come in a wheelchair. I boarded an elevator with 4 other agents. We had our guns drawn and ready. "He's extremely dangerous. Please take what I'm saying seriously," I reminded them as we stepped from the elevator on the therapist's floor. It had been painted since the last time I was there. So much of this was familiar, hauntingly so. I was getting angry all over again about Patsy Hampton's death, about the Weasel. I pressed the bell at 10D. Then I called out, "FBI, open the door. FBI, Dr. Cassidy." The door opened and I was staring at a tall, attractive blonde woman whom I recognized. Elizabeth Cassidy recognized me, too. "Dr. Cross," she said. "What a surprise. Well, no, it isn't really." As she spoke, I heard a wheelchair rolling up behind her. I raised my gun, pushing Dr. Cassidy out of the way. I aimed my weapon. "Stop right there! Stop!" I shouted. The wheelchair and the man seated in it came into full view. I shook my head and slowly lowered the gun. I held back a curse. I smelled a rat, or should I say a weasel. The man in the wheelchair spoke.
"I'm obviously not Colonel Jeffrey Schaefer, nor have I met him. I'm a stage actor named Francis Niccolo, and I am physically impaired, so no rough treatment, please. I was told to come here, and I am being paid handsomely to do so. I was instructed to tell you that the Colonel says, hello, and that you should have listened to the explicit instructions you were given. Since you are here, you didn't listen."
The man in the wheelchair then bowed from the waist.
"That's my part, my piece. It's all I know. How was my performance? Acceptable? You may applaud, if you wish."
"You're under arrest," I told him. Then I turned to Elizabeth Cassidy. "So are you. Where is he? Where's Schaefer?" She shook her head and looked incredibly sad. "I haven't seen Jeffrey in years. I'm being used, and so are you. Of course, for me, it's harder. I loved him. I strongly suggest that you get used to it. This is how his mind works, and I should know." So should I was thinking. So should I. Chapter 30.
This is impressive, thought Captain Nicky Williams. Not the airfield meeting itself. The whole plan was dazzling, audacious. Manassas Regional was a small, nondescript airport spread over 800 acres with 2 parallel runways. There was a main terminal building and an FAA control tower, but it was a very good spot for the mission. Somebody is really thinking things through. This is going to work. A couple of minutes after Captain Williams arrived at the airfield, she saw her helicopter setting down. She had 2 instant notions. Where the hell had these people gotten an MD-530? And it was just right for the job she'd been given. This was definitely going to work. It might not even be that hairy. Nicky Williams hurried to the helicopter, carrying the Winchester Magnum in a cloth sling bag. The pilot had the other critical puzzle pieces for her. He was apparently the man with the final plan. I'm all fueled. We're headed northeast over Route 28. I'm going to set her down for half a minute or so in Rock Creek Park, he told her. Rock Creek Park? I don't follow, Captain Williams said. Why would you put down again once we're airborne? The park stop is just to get you up on the skid. That's your position for the hit. All right with you? Perfect, Williams said. I get it now. The scheme was daring, but it made sense to her. Everything about it did. They had even picked an overcast day with very slight winds. The MD-530 was fast and highly maneuverable. It was also stable enough to shoot from. In her Army days, she'd fired thousands of rounds from them in all kinds of weather, and practice made perfect. You ready? The pilot called back once she was on board. We're going to be in and out of D.C. in less than 9 minutes. Williams gave it a thumbs up, and the MD-530 corkscrewed up fast, flew northeast, and was soon crossing the Potomac. It never got higher than 30 or 40 feet off the ground, and was traveling at about 80 knots. The helicopter set down for less than 40 seconds in Rock Creek Park. Captain Williams took a position on the right skid, behind and just below the pilot. Then she signaled for him to lift off. Let's go. Let's do it. Not only is this smart, it is cool as hell, she couldn't help thinking as the helicopter took off again and closed on her target. In and out of harm's way in less than 9 minutes. He'll never know what hit him.
Chapter 31. I was back at my desk before noon, feeling edgy and ragged, tapping into the National Crime Information Center computer database, drinking about a gallon of black coffee, which was the worst thing to do. The goddamn weasel. He knew we had found out about the wheelchair. But how? They have somebody inside, don't they? Somebody warned Schaefer. At about 1, I was still at my desk when a shrill, ear-splitting alarm sounded in the building. At the same time, my pager signaled a terrorist alert. I heard loud voices up and down the hall. "Look out your window! Go to your window, quick!" "Oh, good God, what the hell are they doing down there?" somebody else yelled. I took a look outside and was stunned to see 2 men in fatigues running across the pink granite cobblestone of the inner courtyard. They were just passing the bronze sculpture, "Fidelity, Bravery, Integrity." My first wild thought was that the men might be human bombs. How else could just 2 of them hope to damage the building, or anybody inside? An agent named Charlie Kilvert from next door peeked his head inside. "You catching this, Alex? You believe it?" "I see it. I don't believe it." I couldn't take my eyes off the action down in the courtyard, though. Within seconds, heavily armed agents had appeared on the scene. At first, there were only 3, then at least a dozen. The guards from the sidewalk booth suddenly came tearing up the driveway, too. All the agents below had their guns pointed at the 2 men in fatigues. Both of them had stopped running now. They appeared to be surrendering. The agents weren't coming any closer, though. Maybe they shared my idea about human bombs, but more likely they were following procedure. The suspects were